When a theme park is getting ready to open for the year, there's a lot of preparation work that goes on, and everybody, no matter what their role is, has some work they have to do. With all of the parks closed right now due to coronavirus, there's going to be a lot of preparation work they're all going to have to do. For the year-round parks, in some ways, it's kind of a new thing. But for the seasonals, they're used to doing this. It's just a little bit of a late start. And I got to do that process 3 times while I was at Silver Dollar City. It's kind of a neat look to see how a park gets ready for the year, and how the individuals working all have their own role to play. Before the season starts, of course, you've got to get your job. Silver Dollar City typically hires a couple months before the season starts. I was hired on the train at Silver Dollar City in 2012, and then 2013 and 14, I knew ahead of time I was starting the year. It starts off with January or February, you get your rehire letter, assuming that you're not a new hire that year at the big job fair. And you get the nice letter saying, welcome back, we're excited to have you, you're going to be working here this year. You already know ahead of time that you've got a job coming, and you actually have to sign the letter and send it back to Silver Dollar City saying, yes, I am confirming that I am going to be there again this next year, which is why I don't have any of my rehire letters. I really wish I'd copied them or something. After that, you're going to get a nice little postcard from Silver Dollar City Attractions or whatever department that you're in that's going to say, welcome home. And this is your orientation information. This is letting you know when you get to come in for your department, meet everybody. This is kind of your big welcome back. Here is what's new. Here's what's changed. Here's what stayed the same. If you have any paperwork to update, we're going to talk about that. Here's everything that you need to know for the overall park in your department that's going to go on. You'll get the same kind of thing for merchandise. You'll get another one for foods. And so every department is going to have their own big, huge welcome back shindig. Sometimes we would have food. Sometimes it was just a couple hours meeting. Afterwards, you would plan on meeting with your lead and your team for wherever you were actually working. So after we had our big meeting, we knew ahead of time that the train guys were going to get together down at the train station. We may go out for lunch, which we did once or twice. Then we get down there and we're going to get ready to go for the year. Also around the same time, you're going to get a couple of other pieces of paper. This is your welcome back. Here's everything you need to know about the year. Safety procedures, dress codes, things like that. Actually, it probably came the same time as I got my checkout sheet for costuming. That's also one of the pre-things that you have to do is you have to go get your costume. And you'd sign out what you were taking and what you were checking out. That way they had a record and you had a record as well. One of the things that Silver Dollar City did that was kind of neat, if you were finishing a year and you were pretty sure you were going to be back the next year, you could actually take specific costume pieces and you could set them aside and reserve them just for you for the next year. We would take like a large paper grocery bag, we'd write our name on it, and then we would put in the pieces that we wanted to make sure they saved for us. So if you actually found a couple pairs of pants that fit you really well, or a vest, or in our case, the hats, because the hats were different sizes and I've got a big old fat head. And so if I found a hat that fit me, I wanted my hat. And we could put those things into a bag and they would actually set it aside. It would save us a whole lot of time the beginning of next year, digging through clothes, trying to find things that fit. We just walk up and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and they'd go grab our bag and hand it to us. We did get new shirts every year, and then for the robbers, we actually got new discarded old used shirts that we could then finish scrapping up. But for the conductor outfits, the pants, the vests, and the hats, typically we would have those set aside and kept for us. Made it a whole lot easier to get our costumes. Then it's getting together with your team finally and getting ready to go. We would have our first team meeting down at the train station. We might meet in the break room, but usually we met in the train depot because we shared our break room with Half Dollar Holler and they would also be getting together. So we would leave them the break room, we'd meet in the depot, and we would start talking about the year. Now there were basically 3 things that we had to do to get ready for the year before it started, and we had to make sure we got them all done. Preparation, paperwork, and practice. The 3 P's. Preparation is basically getting everything ready. One of the things that Silver Dollar City does is every crew, every team is responsible for cleaning their area to start the season. The Homestead people, your street square actors and the Homestead pickers and them, they are actually responsible for cleaning the Homestead. For us in the train, we were responsible for cleaning our train depot, for cleaning the break room, and for getting everything around it ready to go. This meant pulling stuff out of the break room, sweeping it, mopping it, checking everything inside to make sure it's all in good shape and that it's nice and clean and dust-free. For the depot, it meant not just sweeping it out. Typically during the year we would blow it, but this time we would sweep it, we'd scrub it. We would also actually get down on our hands and knees with the wood slats, and we would clean in between these wood slats. All that grime and crud and gum that people dropped and all of that stuff, we would clean it all out. We had a couple power tools that we used to help clean those grooves, and scraping and scrubbing, and it stank. It was one of the bad jobs that came with it, but it had to be done by someone, and so we did it. We would clean our fences. We would walk through the dock area and make sure that all the boards were in good shape. If there were any loose boards, anything that moved, we made sure we noted it for maintenance to come. And so we would have several of us walking repeatedly over that dock, trying to make sure we caught everything that way. We checked the gates to make sure they worked. After we got the sound system put into the depot, we were checking the sound system to make it work. But it wasn't just at the depot for us. We also had the robbery scene. We would have to go out there and we'd have to pull the outhouse out of storage and put it back into the scene. And that thing was a booger to move with. Even with the crew, we would all carry it, and if we could get a hold of a pickup, it helped because we'd put it partway on the pickup and 2 or 3 would hold it while the driver drove it down. Yeah, that house was a pain. It would have been nice if we could have just left it in place, but they wanted it moved every year for Christmas. It also meant rebuilding Ma's grave. So we would actually have to get out. We'd taken all the rocks from the grave and we piled them up next to the robber shack. And we pull all of those rocks out, re-outline the grave, refill it in with all the rocks, pull the boots and feet out of storage, pluck those in, pull the tombstone back out, put it back out there. We had to get the campfire set up and the logs and everything else so it looked like a robbery scene, because we put it all away and pull it all back out again every year. We'd also check our sound system out there to make sure it was working. The microphones for the robbers were working right. I am sure after they finally put in permanent lighting out there, they've got to check that every year. And so there's just a lot of checking everything and cleaning everything and setting it all up so it's ready to go. Paperwork is also being done at the same time. The paperwork involves not just your tax forms and those kinds of things. It involves retraining. Everybody has to be retrained. Even though we all know this stuff, most of it's a review, so we're kind of brushing up, which is a shorter process of retraining. If we'd have somebody new come in, it was a much longer process because it's much more detailed. We are kind of assumed to know it, but here's the refresher. Here's what you need to know. Testing on all of it. Depending upon what we're testing on, we would need to either have an 80% or a 100%. They really wanted the 100%, especially safety. Safety had to be a 100% pass or forget it. You could not be recertified unless you were passing the safety stuff 100%. And we would have to go through all of that again. That would take hours rehearsing and reviewing and renewing and making sure that we knew everything. That's mostly what paperwork was. Paperwork was probably the least interesting part of it. And it was just sitting down with the operations manuals. The lead would have the test, and here's what we need to know, and we would just go through everything again. Talk about what worked well last year, what didn't work well, what should we consider reviewing, and maybe make some notes like that. But otherwise, here's getting back on course again. So that was preparation and paperwork. And then the last one, practice. And this was typically spread over a couple of days. The train guys, the engineers, and the mechanical crew would get the engines ready because they've also got to practice running everything. And we would spend a day or two just running the train in circles. They would pull the train up, and then we would go through, we'd probably clean the train off just to practice that. And then we would spend time jumping back and forth between either being the on conductor, who's the guy that actually rode the train, and the off conductor. We would actually have to practice waving the train in and do that so many times to be certified that, yes, we still remembered how to wave the train in. We had to actually ride the train a number of times, talk to the engineer and clear it, make sure everything was working properly, that the boxes in back were all working properly, that we remembered how to use them, review all of that, and then ride several times, giving the commands, yes, we're clear to go, no, we're not clear to go, stop the train, we're good. And we would do that repeatedly over and over and over again. Or we'd be watching other people do it while we were riding the train or standing on the side and just going around and around. Also, as part of that, we would be practicing the robbery again. We would run through it several times to make sure that we remembered all the lines, to remember what we were doing, to get our timing back down. Because after several months of not doing it, you're off a little bit. And so we would work through and make sure that we all knew what we were doing there, switch in and out of all the parts so that way we could remember each and every part. And so we're doing all of this the whole time. Part of that riding around circles would be stopping out at the train robbery, giving the signals and making sure that we got the stop down. We would practice spieling to an empty train so that way we could remember our timing as conductors. We all had to make sure that we knew what we were doing so that way when opening day came, we had it down beforehand. We didn't sit there and practice on the guests. We had already practiced and remembered everything. My first year there, in fact, I basically watched the other guys do this and did a little bit, but for the most part, I hadn't gone through the main training yet, so I was just kind of watching and absorbing while they did that. Then the last 2 years, I got to get much more involved with the practice. I just had to get fully certified the first time before I could do any of it. After all of that is done, after you've practiced the speed, after you've practiced the robbery, after you've practiced all the safety procedures, after you've practiced riding the train and waving the train in and waving the train out and giving all the commands back and forth with all the crews, after everybody's refreshed and renewed and feeling like they've got it down, then at the end of it all, you have the white glove. This is where actually all the park bigwigs, the park management, the department management, and sometimes some of the corporate management would actually spend half a day to a full day, and they would go around to everything in the park. They would go to every single ride and check it out and make sure that the people running it knew what they were doing. They would go to the stores and check them out. They would go to the restaurants and check them out. It meant going to many of the rides and in many cases actually riding the ride to watch the crew in operation to make sure they knew what they were doing. For us at the train, it meant that they would come down, we'd wave them in just like they were guests, we'd give them the pre-spiel, we'd take them on the train, we would spiel all the way around the track for them to hear. We would do the robbery, usually a slightly shortened form. We'd do the short show for them because they had other stuff they wanted to do. And then we would take them back, spieling all the way, and wave them out just like they were guests. And they would sign off and say, yep, they've got it down. Part of that, too, they're inspecting everything to make sure it's clean and ready to go. The white glove was kind of the one time that it was fun and exciting, but it was also a little bit nerve-wracking because if you didn't have something that was up to par and ready, that was when you were going to get hit by it. So you wanted to make sure you were ready for white glove. Once white glove was done, hey, they considered you done, they considered you ready, and you were cleared to go. And that was what you were looking for. Once white glove was done, season's ready to go, and off you rolled. So have you ever opened up a park? Have you had similar experiences? I'd love to hear them. Please don't forget to share them in the comments below. Thank you so much for subscribing, for liking the video, for sharing the video. Be sure to hit that bell notification if you haven't hit it already. Also, be sure to check the description below. There's a ton of information there about fan pages, about my gear, about how to get a hold of me. If you've got questions, check the description first. There's a whole lot of info there. I also want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and patrons. Their financial support means so much and makes so much possible. B-roll footage and pictures you see, a lot of that comes because my patrons and member supporters have helped me out so much. And they get a lot of perks and rewards too. I also want to give a huge shout out to my new patron and my 2 new YouTube members. So thank you so much to Dusty for signing on as a new patron. I appreciate you so much. And also thank you to my 2 new YouTube members, Julia Long, and also to Robert Martin Chaplin. Thank you so much for signing on as new members. Your support and being part of the team means the world to me. And thank you so much for watching. God bless. I had a lot of wonderful... Oh gosh, that's not what I want. One of the things that Silver Dollar City did that was kind of neat is if you were... Yeah, they did that good. It also meant rebuilding Mom's grave. Mom's grave? No, not Mom. Ma. And also to Julia Young. So thank you so much to Dusty for signing on to Patreon. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much to Dusty for signing on as a patron on Patreon. Also, thank you to Julia Long and to... Oh my gosh, I got the wrong thing sitting there. And also thank you to my 2 new YouTube members, Julia Young. And to Robert Martin Chaplain. Am I getting that right? Chaplain. If you'd like to know about my merchandise, fan pages, and more, be sure to check the description below. If you'd like to know whenever I've got a new video posted, well, make sure you hit that button right up there and subscribe. If you'd like to watch another one of my videos, I've got a great one for you right here. And if you'd like to be like these wonderful people here and support me financially on Patreon, well, make sure you check the link right there. There's even some extra perks for them. Thank you so much, and God bless.